if I do the math in my head, that means that a team of 5, 6 great engineers with some angel backing and maybe an institutional investor on board could potentially be acquired by you for under £15 million. Because I have the feeling that Google buys lots of things, but not for the millions that most entrepreneurs think that they will fetch. If you talk to many entrepreneurs, you say, what's your exit strategy? Google will buy us. And I think that probably the way you've explained it, because the human capital is one of the targets you have in mind, and the technology, but most of all the team to continue adding value, I don't think that people will be making the great millions if they get acquired by you.
I mean, we generally don't state what our pricing is, and the one thing I'm always very careful about is I'm never quite sure what is public, what is not. So I'm careful about that. But to broadly answer your question, we are fairly agnostic about team size. Obviously, team by itself means it's a plural. But we've bought very small teams and we bought very large teams. But I think from the way we look at it is there something in that team which is larger than the sum of the whole, which is important for us? And is there something that the team brings that works on any of the product sets that we're looking at to work on? Then there's another way of looking at the same thing, is there something from a pure product perspective that today we don't, but we absolutely would like to get into that? And then you have a team which almost becomes the founding team for that particular product set. So it works in different ways. So yes, definitely a lot of companies think of my exit strategy is Google, and that makes me very nervous because that's you're talking about very high beta effect out there, and you're really playing the odds. I think the best way is that if you're going to succeed as a company, you will succeed irrespective of who's going to buy you. Tailoring yourself to be bought by a specific company may not be the right strategy, in my opinion. Feel free to go and try. But what I think really works is think of your own value proposition from your team perspective, from the product perspective, your technology perspective, and that basically is what will make you attractive from any particular buyer. You'll be surprised that most buyers fundamentally don't do anything very different to what Google does in terms of what they're looking for. They still look for pretty much the best team that they can get, because that's what they're getting at. Unless it's purely a market share buy. And that's a very different kind of acquisition, and I've done that before and done it recently. There's a slightly different dynamic when you get into that particular part. But anything else is exactly as I said.
Actually, just butting with the question, for Dave, did that whole kind of Skype experience impact sort of the whole eBay, PayPal view of acquisitions?
Yes.
Still hurts.
So we bought Skype from memory for about $2 billion, and we bought it in part for the social, local, mobile aspect. So it was meant to be the mobile aspect. It was also meant to be social, and the idea was people would go onto eBay, they'd chat on Skype, and then they'd pay with PayPal. And the reality was it was extremely difficult to get those synergies and to get it to work. And we had an exit, and it took a little bit longer than people would have liked, but effectively we got our money back. But it's a reminder that you have to be very clear from our perspective about what the strategy is. And two other recent examples, one, Bill Me Later, a transactional credit company that we bought for just under $1 billion about 3 years ago now. So instead of offering you a line, normally when you go to your credit card, they say, okay, you're good for $1,000, $5,000. Every time you do a transaction, whether you're buying a bottle of water or whether you're buying a shirt, you're good for $50 or you're good for $100. And that way of thinking about the business is fantastic. We hope to bring that to the EU because we see lots of opportunities there to just not really for credit's sake, but just providing that incremental sales, so adding value to merchants when they want to transact, and also adding value for consumers because most of the time you just buy and worry about paying for it later. And then we had another one that we bought just for $25 million a few weeks ago called BillSafe in Germany, which is payment upon invoicing, which is very unusual from a from a really an online business perspective to go back to invoicing, but it is the preferred way to pay in Germany. We think that we can, effectively it was a play on time to market because there is a lot of competition in the market. So I think when you're doing acquisitions, you have to think about strategy, you have to think about competition, and the fact that we have a big business now with very long lead times to try and accelerate that time to market, buy a small company, get a foothold. We had a partnership with them, bought a small stake, 49% I think it was, but actually because of data, etc., we couldn't actually share data. And as you mentioned earlier, fraud risk is such a big part of our business. The ability to share data to massively improve their fraud losses was key to us, and we weren't getting those synergies, so we thought, okay, let's buy the company. And after strategy, the second most important thing for us is talent. Do they have the right fit? And actually, with going back to the question about Skype, there were some very strong personalities there, some very, very smart people, but there wasn't really the same kind of integrity, ethics, the way of doing business that I think we do at eBay and PayPal, and so it didn't work. Whereas BillSafe and with Bill Me Later, it did work.